Hello my friends, and welcome to this next video in the series where we shall be discussing the document object model in JavaScript. The document object model, short for DOM, is just a representation of your web page. So this representation comes in form of a tree-like structure. First of all, you have a web page, and then you have HTML elements making up the content of this web page. So in a web page, you can have the heading, so using the H1 or H2 and so on and so forth. You can have the body, you can have paragraphs, you can have images using the img tag, and so on and so forth. So the DOM, or the document object model, is just a tree-like representation of these HTML elements on your web page. The HTML elements in this tree-like structure can share a parent-child relationship. So first of all, you have the HTML tag as the root of this tree, and then you now have the head body. So for the head can have elements inside of it, such as the meta tags and such as the title tag. So the meta tags and the title tags can be the children of this head tags. And also for the body, you can have the H1 tag, you can have the paragraph tag, that is the P tag. And this H1 tag and the P tags are the children of the body tag. And in turn, the head and the body, they are all the children of the HTML tag. So this is what the tree-like structure is like. And each element in this tree-like structure would usually have a parent. In fact, can just have one parent, but they can have siblings or cousins if you like. So for example, the meta tags and the title tags within the head tags, they are all siblings because they exist inside of the head tag. The H1 tag and the paragraph tag are all siblings because they exist within the body tag. Also, the DOM, that is the document object model, gives us a way to manipulate the HTML page that we have. So we can manipulate the heading, we can manipulate the paragraphs, we can manipulate images, and so on and so forth. So for example, for a heading, we can manipulate the content or the text for the heading to say something else. Maybe right now this heading is saying welcome to JavaScript, and we can change it to welcome home, something like this. We can all do this kind of manipulation using the DOM. That is what the DOM is majorly used for. We can also use the DOM to listen for actions or events on our web page. So if, for example, we have a button on our web page, we want to use the DOM to listen for when that button is clicked. Clicking is an action or an event, right? So we want to be able to listen for an event such as a click event on that button. And maybe we want to do something when that click event happens. For example, we want to show a particular picture, or we want to change the text written inside of a paragraph or a heading when that button is clicked. So these are the basic things that we can actually do with the DOM. The DOM just gives us a powerful way to manipulate the content of our HTML page. Now enough of the theory, let's jump right into our VS Code to see how these things work. Right here on the left is my VS Code, and on the right is my browser. So we're inside of our home.html file, and right here is the scripting.js file where we'll be writing most of our JavaScript codes. Okay, so back to our home.html file. Now, in order to see anything on this web page, we need to work or write something inside of the home.html file. And since we're in VS Code, a very powerful editor that gives us a whole lot of flexibility, I can just do something like HTML, and then I can choose HTML5 right here, and then we'll have something called a boilerplate code. So this is the basic code for HTML. Right here you have the doc type declaration telling the browser that this is an HTML file, and then you have the HTML right here, and then you have the head right here, and the head has some other tags, the meta tags and the title tag, and then the body is currently empty. So if I save this thing, we're not going to see anything yet on this web page. And by the way, if you're new to HTML, there will be a link in the description below to my HTML and CSS course. You can check that out and learn HTML and CSS. You don't necessarily need to learn CSS or even thoroughly HTML in order to follow through or to follow along in this particular course, but it will give you an advantage. Right here in the body, I'm going to give the head one tag like this, and I'm going to say learning JavaScript. And when I save, now we have learning JavaScript right here. Talking about the document object model, now that we've saved this HTML file and we're seeing something on our web page, already there is a true-like structure of the content that we have currently inside of this home.html file. And in that way, we'll be able to interact with the content on this web page. So what I want to do now is to add more content to this web page. I'm going to add a couple of paragraphs. I'm going to say something like learning is fun, and then add another one that says something like I love to learn, like this, and save, and we'll see them right here on the web page. And one more thing I'm going to do is just to add a button. So I'm going to bring in the button tag, which says click me, and I save, and here right here we say click me. First of all, we can try to style this up a bit. We can try to style some of the things here using CSS, and to do that I can add one more tag inside of this heading called the style tag. So I can use the style tag like this, and then I can target the h1 right here. So I can say h1, and then I can do something like text align. So I just want it to be at the center, so I can say text align center. And when I save, now you can see that it has moved to the center. And then for the paragraphs, I want the paragraphs to have a background color. So I'm going to say background color of bisque, or bisque, I think that's how it's pronounced. And right here, there is a background color of bisque. I'm also going to add the width property for the paragraphs. So I'm going to say width, and I'm going to give it 80% like this, meaning 80% of the parent elements. So when I save, now this is 80%, and then I can just try to center it. I can try to use the margin, so I can say margin, and I can say 0 pixels, and then I can say something like 30 pixels. So when I save now, you have it all here. And one thing I can do in order to separate these two from each other, I can give margin, just margin bottom. All right, this is not a CSS class, but I just want to style it up a bit so it looks a bit pleasing. All right, so I can use margin bottom to be something like 20 pixels, and now they're separate from each other. Finally, I can just say text align so that the text is in the center. So I can use text align, I can use center, and yeah, so this is what we have currently. And then we have this button right here. You can just leave it like this. Now, how do we use the DOM, that is the document object model, to manipulate some of the things that we have on this web page? Right now, we're having a true-like structure of the DOM, which includes the HTML as the roots, and then it has the head, and then it has this body, and the body has heading, which is this one right here, the learning JavaScript, and it has the paragraphs, and it has a button. So there is a tree-like structure of this already in existence. So we can use that information to actually manipulate the content of our web page. In order to begin manipulating the content of our web page, we need to capture the particular element or elements that we want to be able to manipulate, either by changing them or changing some sort of actions that are on them originally. So let's start first of all with this h1 tag right here that says learning JavaScript. You can see it's right here, learning JavaScript. And in order to manipulate this h1 in the first place, we need to capture it in some way. So let's go to our scripting.js file and capture this learning JavaScript right here. How do we capture it? So we can use, or we start with the document right here. So remember, this is all about document object model. And so most of the time we use something like document dot, because remember, all these things on the web page, the heading, the paragraphs, the button, the images that you find, and everything, they all belong together as documents that are in a document object. Okay, so we use a document to access it. This is a document right here. Okay, the page you're seeing is document. So we want to say something like document dots, and then we can say something like get element by ID. So this is one way to actually capture an element on the web page. You must have seen me use this a lot of times in the past videos, but now we're now talking about it, right? I'm sure you're excited. All right, we're using get element by ID, and this is to get an element by its ID. But if you look back in the home.html file, right here, we don't have an ID, so we can just quickly add up an ID, and we can just say heading 1 like this, and save. And back here in the scripting, the JS file, we can say document the get element by ID, and then I'm going to provide that ID. What ID did we just give? We gave heading 1, so I'm going to say heading 1 like this. So in writing out this code, we've now captured this right here, this learning JavaScript. And what do we want to do? Maybe we want the color of this learning JavaScript to actually change from black to blue. So I can say something like document the get element by ID heading 1, and then we'll say something like dot star. In order to change the color of a particular element on the web page, we use the star. So things like the color, the font size, and things like that, we use the star, because remember, fonts, color, font size, and everything like that, they're all part of CSS, which is like styling, right? So we use dot star, and then I'm going to say style dot, which property do I want to set? I want to set the color property, which means I want to change the color of this heading tag. So I'm going to say dot style dot color, and I want to set it to be equals to a different color. What color do I want to set it to? Let's say blue. And once I click save, and nothing happens, it doesn't change to blue. Why is that so? That's because we've not yet linked this scripting.js file to our home.html. So I'm going to go back to home.html and come right here, just before the end of the body tag, that is before the end of this closing body tag, and I'm going to give the script tag right here. And this script tag is going to help us bring in our scripting.js file. So I'm going to say right here, src is equals to scripting.js. So as soon as I save, now you can see that this learning JavaScript has been changed to a blue color. So now, looking back again, we've seen how we were able to change the color of this heading tag right here. And just like before, sometimes we don't get to see everything all at once. So I'm going to press Option Z on my keyboard since I'm using a Mac, and then everything will come down to the next line and we can see everything at once. Again, if you're using the Windows, you can just go to View under your VS Code and click on Word Wrap, all right? And you're going to see everything down here. Okay, so this is what we have. So we capture the element and then we set something on it. And what about this paragraphs? Let's look at this one. Learning is fun. So what we want to do is to be able to capture this paragraph right here and do something with it. Let's say we want to change the background color from this bisque, this brownish looking color, to something else. So what do? Just like before, we're going to capture this paragraph, this particular one, learning is fun, right here. So we'll go back and I'm going to say something like document again, document dot get elements. And if you look, whenever I type get elements, you can see that there is a whole bunch of options given to us by VS Code. So we can get an element that exists on the web page by its ID, we can get elements by class name, we can get elements by name, we can get elements by tag name, we can get elements by tag name in it, and so on and so forth. They can be used in a variety of ways, but the most popular ones are getting element by its ID or by class name or by tag name, depending on your use case. In this case, I'm going to use tag name. And what is tag name? It's just simply the name of the tag. In this case, the name of the tag is p tag. But if you look carefully, you can see that this thing says document.get elements by tag name. It says elements. Unlike here, that is just get element by ID. So this one will just get only one element. Since it's just singular, it is not plural. Unlike this one that is plural, elements. So it means that it will get every element that has this tag name. And what's the tag name? P. So every P tag that exists on this web page would be targeted. And that means we'll have an array of P tags. It is just like doing it like this. Right here, we have document.get elements by tag name P. And since this is plural, it means you have all the P's returned to you. And they're returned in the form of an array. So you have the first paragraph, you have the second paragraph, third paragraph, as many paragraphs as you have on the web page. But in our particular case, we will only have 2 paragraphs. So since we only have 2 paragraphs, you're going to only have an array of 2 items, which is an array of two paragraphs. And then in order to access the first one right here, we're going to say something like 0 right here to access the first one. All right. So in doing this, I've already captured this learning is fun paragraph right here. And I can change anything about it. I can say dot star, let's say I want to change the background color, the star dot background color. So what do I want the background color to be? Let's say I want it to become gray like this. So as soon as I save, you can see that this one has changed to gray. If I were to change this 0 from 0 to 1, it means I'll be targeting this second one right here, the second paragraph, which says I love to learn. So as soon as I save, you can see that one becomes gray instead. So remember, when you use this get elements by, as long as the S here is present, that is elements, it means you have an array of that particular targeted element. So you have an array of paragraphs in this case. Okay, so if you want to target a particular one, you can now use 0, 1, 2, depending, to target it. The key thing to note is that we can capture elements that exist on our web page using the DOM, that is the document object model. And to catch or capture a particular element, we can use document.get element by ID, get elements by tag name, and so on and so forth. But when you're using get elements by tag name, and in fact any other one that has this S in the elements, it means it's plural. It means it's going to catch all those elements, more than one. All right. And so in order to choose a particular one, you can now use this square bracket having 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth to catch a particular one. And then you can now change something about that particular element. For example, we've changed the background color of this one. We've changed the color of this H1 tag. So that's it for this video. And we're going to continue our discussion on the document object model and how to do more things using the document object model in the next video.